Uh-oh.
Just go buffering.
Yeah, Rick, you
Yeah.
kind of froze up there.
Yeah.
Let me hold on. My name is Rick Ramirez, also known as Rick's 2 Cents. Along with my fellow co-host Steve from Steve Makes Everything,
Howdy, y'all.
and Roger from Roger's Shop. Let me just
Hello
click
there.
anything from the background here. We do have a special guest, Ryan, who did confirm earlier that he is going to join, so maybe he's just joining late. I'll shoot him an email, just a reminder, just in case he is running a little late from work. Steve, you want to catch up in the comments here really quick while I reach out to him?
I haven't.
Please.
There's not much in the comments. Few people saying hello. I already said hi to Chris and Doug. ATB is back. Oh, what's he saying? Oh yeah, half hour late. No, that's usually us. Jim is back. Jim, we'll talk tomorrow. Hopefully, we can solve your issue or at least bring some clarity.
Looks
There he
like
is.
Ryan has joined us.
All right.
Hey Ryan. Hey Ryan, how's it going, brother? How's it going?
Oh man, just finishing up a project in the shop, and so hey Luca, what's up, man? Greeting from CIC Academy family. Luca's one of our founders of CIC Academy, so he's out in the Netherlands. So
nice.
He's
so it's late. It's late for him.
It should be 2 a.m. for him. No, 1 a.m. for him. One of those. So he's very technically savvy. A lot of respect for Luca.
So Ryan, I have to say, those who are in our live, they're kind of all geared towards the industry that you're in as well as us. So I don't think there has to be a big introduction to who you are, but those who have been sleeping under a rock, do you want to see who you are, kind of your background a little bit, maybe?
Yeah. Well, I'll get this. Yeah. So, oh gosh, I'm a little dark there. So I started woodworking whenever I was 16 years old, full time. It sounds kind of crazy, but I was a welder before then. Came from a not rich country family, right? So we're welding. I've had a summer job since I was 5 years old. So started woodworking when I was 16 years old. Never looked back. It put me through high school, bought my first truck, bought girl money, beer money, and gas money. That was the 3 things I needed growing up. And I don't think it's actually changed much, even though it's been 13 years. So it put me through high school, put me through college. While I was in college, I continued to grow it, bought my first CNC at age 19, and hired my parents when I turned 21. Couple products took off on Etsy. And by the time I graduated college, once again, I was in college because it was fun, not because I ever thought I was going to use a degree. It was an agricultural economics degree, so I learned how to farm. But a lot of stuff did apply to what I was doing. It was really in a weird way, but that's a different story. So graduated, we did $1 million in sales with the products on Etsy while I was in college. I had 7 full-timers once I graduated, and then put the pedal to the metal once I graduated, bought 2 acres. Everybody else is partying every single weekend. I worked Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, drove back up to college Monday, did class, slept on Monday, class on Tuesday, homework Wednesday, partied Wednesday night, drove back home Thursday. Every single week except 6. There's 6 total weekends where I stayed in college. Missed every football game, missed all that stuff, but I was growing the business. And put pedal to the metal, bought 2 acres, built our own shop, built it by hand. It's a 12,000 square foot shop. And now in total, I've owned 9 CNC routers. I have 4 laser engravers, 1 3D printer, and we've done a little over 10 million on Etsy. And then I also have Cutting It Close, which is our YouTube channel, where my goal with that, this is the goal that eventually evolved into what it is now, is we're trying to help people press go on their machine. Because everybody knows sitting on this live that is sometimes the hardest thing to do, is getting to the spot where you can click go. And so our mission is to help people, with bits, supplies, materials, education, so they're dangerous enough to click go and not so scared, to actually use the machine. And now we have 25 full-time employees, and YouTube channel's growing, business is growing, and I'm doing what I was born to do.
Sweet.
So Ryan, I have to ask. I see, like, I've been a big time fan of yours, watching yours, and I see some hardcore Christian type family values in your upbringings, and I have to say, like, what made you kind of reach back? Because you are somewhat creating your own competition. Like, what made you open to, hey, I'm successful, you know, I'm achieving my goals, but I'm just not satisfied with me being successful. I want to help others be successful too. And you're not cramming a course down someone's throat. You're really offering, you know, bits to people at an extremely affordable price. You're offering woodworking supplies to people at an affordable price. What made you do that and not just keep your success, you know, items to yourself, you know, and not share those with the world?
You know, that, damn, I've never been asked that before, Rick. Appreciate that question, man. And by the way, I love you comment a lot on all the videos, and we've talked outside of this, man. I really appreciate you
I'm not
watching.
sure if he froze or needs a moment to think.
Oh, am I good? Maybe I froze? I hope not.
No.
Can y'all see me?
Nope, he froze.
Yeah.
Oh,
you're good.
no.
Oh, there you go. You're back. You're back.
Am
We
I
got
back? Okay.
You only froze for Rick, so
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
No, you look good here. So.
Oh,
you.
okay.
Fine with
Okay.
me.
I'm in the country, so, you know, we got our internet's off and on. No, so I've never been asked that before, Rick. I appreciate you always commenting on the videos and your support. You know, I think I originally started the YouTube channel because I was really mad whenever I found out, like, I never knew what a ripsaw was, right? And when I went to my first show and, like, saw all these big industrial equipment, it was like everybody was keeping that as a secret. And it really pissed me off, to be quite honest with you. And so I got really mad, and I was like, why are we keeping people from being successful? Because, like, I knew nothing about it. You know, I was still operating on a cabinet, a contractor table saw, right? Burning them up every month. But, you know, so it was to my ignorance, I didn't know a lot of stuff because I did everything. I call it doing it. I did it the old school way. Didn't have anybody teach me. My dad doesn't come from a cabinet shop background, anything like that. And so I originally started it because of that, because it pissed me off that there was nothing out there. And so I was teaching about industrial tools, all the stuff I was learning. So if somebody was in my same shoes, they could learn from it. Now, fast forward a little bit, what I started learning is, like, I can tell you, like, everybody knows here probably to that how to eat healthy, right? Like, okay, don't eat so dang much, exercise, eat more green stuff than other stuff, right? Eat meat, cool beans. But very few people are going to actually do that. Me, myself, right? Like, I'm about to go grab a beer. No big deal. So I was like, well, if I'm helping the one me out there that is watching, or the 5 Ryans that are watching the channel, I'm doing good. And so I just started giving everything away for free, like all my knowledge, because I look back on it and I learn. And I don't know, there's a weird saying, right? Like, if you teach it, you learn it better. And so I think through teaching, I'm learning how to simplify it. And if I followed my own advice, I would probably be much better off than where I am today. And so there's a little bit of, I watch my videos, I'll teach it, and then it finally sticks. And I love competition. So if somebody's going to compete with me, let's go, baby. And so if it raises competition up, then I have to get better, and I love getting better. And so I don't know if there's one answer to that. I wish there was some God-fearing, you know, answer that you want to hear, but I love competition. I don't believe in holding secrets. I don't sleep too well at night charging for a course or anything like that. I have a community. You know, it's not very expensive, and we have Q&As every single week. I have the whole course on there. I have a 1-week free trial, so you can literally go on there, take the whole entire course, and get the heck out for free. Like, I do whatever makes me sleep at night. And yeah. And so I don't believe in gatekeeping. And it put me behind when people gatekept from me about all the industrial stuff. And we only have a limited time on this earth, so I don't want to do that to anybody else.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. So,
you know, we say all the time that lasers you know, a lot of times people do not consider them woodworkers, right? And to master being a woodworker, let's just say, on something you would CNC, that in itself is another skill set, right? So the fact that like you are selling some of those like inlay kits or some of the cutting board kits, you know, like that could take someone 6 to 8 months to a year just to master gluing up and creating a cutting board, let alone learning how to use a CNC. So that's kind of like a leapfrog, and not to say eventually they could attempt to make their own, but it really is be able to kind of kickstart their business by offering some of your blanks and high quality blanks. So that's pretty awesome that you do that.
Yeah, and what's interesting about the blanks is like the inlet, like in-grain cutting board, you typically have to have, I mean, you could have a flattening sled and a hand router and all that stuff, but usually you have to have a drum sander to be able to do that stuff. Well, the drum sander is $800. And if you have a drum sander, you probably have a planer and a table saw, and it ends up being $3-4 grand worth of equipment, right? Plus now you have to have a CNC. And that's a lot of moolah to throw around, you know?
Right.
And so I was like, well, this is why I kind of came up with the kit or came out with it. Well, my thought process behind it was I have all this industrial equipment. I buy roughly 150,000 board foot of wood a year. And so I get pretty good pricing on wood.
Do you produce you guys or just me?
I think
it's just you, Rick.
Just you.
That's so
Just
weird.
you. Yeah. So I buy a ton of wood every year. And so I was like, well, I get the wood cheaper than anybody else. My equipment's more efficient than anybody else. And so I can probably make this cutting board and sell it profitably cheaper than somebody else can make it. And obviously I still live on a double wide trailer. So it's not like I'm driving around a Lamborghini or anything like that. Right. So yeah, that's where the kit kind of came out of nowhere. And it is our most successful product so far. And
very cool.
I'm really happy with it.
Yeah. I also like kind of fact how you preach constantly that, you know, focus on 1 or 2 items, 3 items the max. You know, don't try to, you know, you get a new product to just make everything under the world. One of the things we talk about constantly in our lives is to define your niche, right? Yep. So you kind of are on the same path that we're telling people to be successful, is that find your niche or find something you're going to do and then home in on that and increase your skill sets and really be able to be able to mass produce something at a higher volume or be able to put it out faster. You know, one of your videos, you talked about Etsy, how those cooler kits you sell, you know, other people make them, but, you know, they take 2 to 3 weeks to get them out, and you refine the process so you can get them out so fast that is really your competitive edge, you know, and some of the things. So people who are just starting, do you have any kind of advice, someone first getting into CNC or woodworking, like finding their own path in the woodworking?
You know, I think everybody has their own recipe that they're going to have to follow. I like telling people to lean on their background, because woodworking to me is very competitive. And so if you do not lean on some of the advantages you've had earlier in life, I mean, unless you know the guy that has the maple sawmill, right? Well, like maybe sell something out of maple wood, right? Or you know the guy that owns a laser factory, now you're laser engraving stuff really cheap. So you have to have some competitive advantage in the market, generally 90% of the time. And so, you know, using a CNC is a competitive advantage because most people do not have them. But it's like, okay, I'm using a CNC and I come from the military background and I know of a couple of different military groups, and I know how to do the coin holders and the challenge coins. I know what they represent. I have a cool story because I was in the Marines for 4 years and I served, you know, in Afghanistan. Use that, you know, and that's what I tell people, because sometimes, you know, you have a CNC, you want to start a business, and so you start making planter boxes. And it's like, well, anybody can do that. Like use whatever sauce, whatever secret sauce that you got. You know, if you're a whiskey lover and you love whiskey, you know everything about the highball glasses, what type of whiskey, like cool, make whiskey boxes, you know, make cigar holders for whiskey. I mean, like get into that, because business is very hard. And if you're not a little bit excited about the thing that you're making, I'm not saying follow your passion and just, you absolutely have to love it, but you have to have some kind of sauce behind it that is your competitive advantage. And so that's what I think most people steer wrong, is that they start off and they want to make everything for everybody. And they say, you know what? I came from the software world. A lot of people come from software backgrounds. I'm done with the software world. I'm going straight into new page, new chapter, new everything. It's like, don't start from ground zero, right? Like use some of that, that'd probably be my number one advice. Not even product based, just business savviness. Like don't throw that away.
I've kind of really done that with myself. Everything that I've been geared towards, like my niche is memorial stuff, but outside of that, who I really sell to is I'm a lineman by trade, right? So that's my basis, right?
Yeah.
That's where I'm trusted. I can post on any lineman page. They go to my Facebook profile, they see IBWGF, boom, they approve my post. No question about it. You know what I mean? If I was in the union, they'd probably smoke me off the page, But but Roger knows how that is. We're clicky,
yes,
right?
I do. No, I'm IBEW.
Yeah. So they'll ask you, "Are you an IBW brother?" I'll send them a picture of my card. Here you go. Boop, approved. No problem at all. You know what I mean? But yeah, so I definitely hear that, and that's definitely really solid advice. And I just think that people, it's okay to explore outside. We talk about too that like Halloween's coming up, right? We're not necessarily a Halloween shop, but don't forget to jump on some of those bandwagons. Christmas time comes, no matter what your niche is, make sure that you jump on kind of the bandwagons of certain holidays that are going to sell really, really well. But keep in mind that those are going to be short shelf lives, but definitely something you can make money on.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any shortage of things that you can make money with. It just kind of all depends on your goal. If you're trying to make, 15 grand a year, or you want to pay off your CNC, that's a different, you'd hop on seasonal products. You make the jack-o'-lanterns out of the cedar pickets, right? And those put a candle inside. Those sell like crazy. Like those do really good. I've done really well selling Christmas ornaments with epoxy and wood, right? Taking my scrap, gluing up Christmas ornaments, doing this epoxy with them. And we had an order last year ended up being a $22,000 order because they wanted 1,500 Christmas ornaments.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was a weird order. But, I've sold them. I was selling them, and then that got the order. But, it just all depends on goals, right? And I think not everybody wants to do a full-time business with the CNC, and I definitely respect that. It's not the funnest at all times. You got to really have to love it and love business. So but there's a lot of like Millennium Falcon stuff sells really good on May the 4th. So end of April, that's a good little pick me up. So we designed a Millennium Falcon tray that pretty much everybody can make with the CNC, and we sell it on Amazon during that time frame. And I think this year we sold 600 of them in a 1 week span on Amazon, which is insane.
That's a lot of nerds.
A lot of nerds. Yeah. It was good though, and that's a seasonal product.
Roger had sold quite a bit on Amazon, and one of his gripes, and Roger, you can speak in any times you'd like, that Amazon sometimes you almost have to be prepared for because the demand can be so bad. Do you find when you put things on Amazon that that you had to be ready for that? Was that like a level in your business that you're ready for Amazon because you're going to make the big sales?
Yeah, you got to be ready for it. You got to have the inventory to back up what you have listed.
Yeah, I personally, I don't like Amazon that much, to be honest with you. I sold some stuff on there. I think it's hard to build a business on. I'll say that. I think it's decently hard to build a business on. And when the orders come in, you got to be ready. And then they can stop all of a sudden. And then you have this back stock of stuff. They take a fee. I don't love it. I think it's hyper competitive. Maybe in the last 6 months, it's gotten a little less. But it does have its struggles because then it comes in and then it takes them 2 weeks to check the stuff in. And it's a whole pain in the butt process. I think you're better off selling every other channel but Amazon, honestly, if you're a small timer. Yeah.
My biggest complaint with Amazon are fraudulent returns.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm like. You're always at fault. The manufacturer on Amazon, you know, when you do those returns, if anybody, you know, returns stuff to Amazon, like you're not hurting Amazon. They do not care. Like that's why they offer free returns. You're hurting the person that's manufacturing it. And most of the time it's not a person, it's a giant company in China that ships it over and you're fine. So, you know, nobody knows any better, but when it's like a cutting board or a piggy bank or one of our trays, it hurts because you're not making a lot of margin on the first, you know, you're not making a lot of margin in the first place. And so, you know, a lot of people don't realize they get mad at Etsy because Etsy takes, let's say 12%. Amazon takes 15%, and it's 10 times more competitive than Etsy. And so, and more ruthless, you know, just some things people don't think about, in my opinion.
I think most people that are online, when they're sharing, you know, their success stories, or they're sharing or giving advice to the people, the one thing that they keep their cards close to their chest is they don't actually most times share their website. And, you know, you share openly your website. And I thought it was funny when you said that if you're successful, people will copy you, but people who copy you are lazy, right? And I like that idea that, like, you know, you're saying, I'm coming up with new ideas, you know, I'm being innovative, and someone who's just riding your coattails and trying to steal those little bit of sales, like, for one, if they're trying to steal your ideas, you know, that's a good thing. That means you're doing something right. And for two, they're always going to be behind you, right? Do you want to kind of comment on that, or maybe speak further on that logic of thinking?
Oh my gosh. I mean, yeah, it's that. and once again, I guess looping back to that very first question you asked me, it was, you know, why share so much stuff? Because the copiers are always going to be 2 steps behind you, and they're never going to stop. I've had a Chinese website or a Chinese company. They had 43 different websites that replicated mine, had my phone number, had my products, but they were based on like 6 different servers. Whole big deal. Anyways, they copied me, sold about $10 million in sales from me on piggy banks, run ad campaigns, a whole shindig, right? That's a different level of copying versus seeing one person on Etsy stealing your stuff, or somebody in another chat, or somebody on Tools Today making videos about stuff that you've made. I'm not going to go there, but yeah, so it's a different level. And what I realized, when somebody at that scale copies you, you know, they're out there, right? But it's nothing to be scared about, because if I would have never made it, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And so I think people get really scared about not making something because they're afraid it'll get copied. And it's like, yeah, but they're not going to be as good as you. And that's why I like focusing on one thing, because they're not going to be as good as you. They're always going to copy you. They're always going to be a step behind because they do not have your brain. And, you know, I love that, you know, and I think that's better. And if they do copy you and maybe they make something better, then you better improve because it's a better product. And I believe in capitalism, and the best product should win. Right. And so
Nice.
It's interesting. Like, it's a catch-22, right? But the upside is way better than the downside, I would say. Yeah.
Did we lose Rick again? We lost Rick.
There you go. Is your primary customer based off Etsy then? Did you say that's your bread and butter?
On my current, Drapello Works, which is my product business. Yeah, it's primarily Etsy. I use Etsy as a funnel to other parts of the business now. You know, but for 4 years straight, all I did was Etsy every single day. I'd study it. I'd tweak stuff for 3 hours a day. And I studied like for 4 years straight. And then I use Etsy to bring people to my website. I convert people from Etsy to my website. I'll take businesses that buy from us and give them a phone call. And then we'll sell bulk order of cutting boards to them, or make a custom piggy bank for them, stuff like that. So I like to think of Etsy as almost a lead generation thing for us as well. And so Etsy's still the primary revenue source, but we do generate a lot of other revenue because of Etsy but outside of it. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So this is a live question and answer. So if anyone is here in the live, Ryan is your man when it comes to CNC and building a successful business, obviously. So if there's any questions for him, feel free to ask away. I kind of opened the live with some questions. Steve, you would not mind taking over the comments because my internet's been a little goofy today still.
I have to find out where we are here. We saw that one. Hey, Jim. Yeah, we've seen most of these. Sorry.
Yeah, and I want to ask y'all guys a question.
Sure.
Where do you think the future? What do you think CNCs are like? Here's how I see it. I'll get y'all's opinion. So I think like lasers are a little easier to use, and they can be sized down a lot more. And like, you have your glow forge, you have your diodes, all of that stuff. Where do you see the next step for CNCs? Because I know lasers started here and they've been more accessible than ever before in the history of ever. And CNCs are starting to do that. But where do you see the end of the line for CNCs? I mean, now we're getting lasers we can slap on the side of a CNC, $400, $300, super awesome. I think that's amazing. But where do y'all see CNCs going?
Yeah, I'm less inspired with lasers attached to CNCs, but
I agree.
I think the challenge CNC has is it's been around longer, right? So most of the innovation, we'll say game changing, I hate the term, but the game changing innovation has already happened in CNC. And periodically you see something new sneak in, but it's not going to change the world for the most part. Like the new bed slinger Onefinity, right? I mean, that to me seems kind of gimmicky. But if you've got limited space, hey, maybe.
Yeah.
But I mean, for most people, they would just put a 4x8 CNC down and be done with it, right? I don't know. I don't.
Roger,
when we see like when we see a 5-axis CNC in affordable workshops, then that's, I think, the next jump, right? I mean, we're just kind of moving into 4th axis for a lot of CNC work now, but that's when you get to a 5 or 6 axis CNC, then you're literally able to make anything 3D, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Mike, but the issue I have with that is you still have to know what bits to use and how to program it.
Right. And I don't see that ever going away.
Yeah. I
would see the one thing CNCs have that lasers don't have as much is there's an art form there, right? There's I mean, I'm an engineer, so I approach everything with let me measure some data and I'll get an answer. But when you're doing something like a CNC, now I know Jim Hamilton's on, he'll argue with me about lasers, but there's a black art there that is just, there's magic, right? Where you have to understand, this kind of material, I can use this kind of bit and I can go this fast. You don't have that as much with lasers because a lot of that has been solved already, just because there's millions and millions of cheap lasers around, right? So the market is much fuller than a CNC market. So there are still magicians out there in the CNC world, and I don't see that going away that quickly.
We always say that lasers are the gateway drug for CNCs, right? Like to take your first leap of faith, it's a lot easier to step into a laser before you step into the ring. It's like pro versus major league, minor league, right? And kind of CNCs is really going into the major leagues, and it's kind of like you're buying a car, right? You're not buying a bicycle, you're buying a car. So there's a different level of commitment. You can still be a hobby CNCer, but that means you have a bigger wallet to have nicer toys, right? But most people just don't have that expensive toys. Although I do know some guys with real expensive toys that hardly use them, right? But that's just to me. But the big thing that I see that I think innovation is going to come is AI, right? Like I want to see like this Masso controller behind me. It's pretty complicated. I want to see that when AI tools be able to make some of these resources that anyone could use a CNC, as far as some of these features, that's what I would like to see. I think the meat and potatoes or the hardware components there, but I think there's way more that could be done from a software perspective. And Steve, you're a software engineer, so I think you'd be able to,
And
put a
hardware.
little more on that. But
Yeah.
but I think that could be a lot more user friendly. There is some definitely intimidation factor to it.
The AI won't happen at the CNC level though. It'll happen at the
interface,
the V-carve level. No, it won't even
Yeah.
be that. It'll be like the V-carve level, right? The actual design tool, not
Yeah.
because the Masso controller is just a thing that moves the spindle back and forth and up and down and does all the things, right? There's not a whole lot smarter you can make that. It's the software that you use to create the thing that the CNC is using. Now, I think there's an opportunity to get tighter integration. So look what's happening in the laser world, right? We had Lightburn, which is the functional equivalent of Vectric V-carve. But now a lot of laser companies are building their own software because they can get that tighter integration. They can plug in AI, they can do all kinds of things. And that step hasn't happened in CNCs yet.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think too, like Rick, the word you're looking for is not complicated. It's robust. That's the word they like to
There
use.
you go.
Yeah.
It's a very robust controller. And it's like, look, man, I only use up, down, left, right, Z0, XY0, and go. Like, why is there 7 different tabs on here? Now, with that being said, there should be like, I'm a simple jack. I'm a former engineer. There needs to be 2 buttons on there, right? I'm a simple jack. Okay, here you go. I'm not from engineering background. They give me all that stuff. I get it, but like, look, man, just make it like Shapeoko actually, I think, does a pretty good job of the interface, where it's like there's only like 6 buttons you can touch, period. The Masso, super robust. Some people like it. I think there's too many buttons to click. You have to go from page to page, and that's why I don't love the Masso. They need to put everything.
I actually preferred in the Onefinity world. I actually preferred the Buildbotics controller. It was much cleaner. The user experience was much better.
Yeah.
The thing, like there's some just basic things that the Masso controller doesn't do right. Like if you start a job and cancel it, and then you say, okay, I want to make some adjustments, and then I want to start the job again. You have to remember to rewind the job, otherwise it starts in the middle somewhere and all hell breaks loose, right?
Yeah.
It's simple things like that should be fixed. That doesn't require AI. It just requires better usability engineers to make things easier. But
I
easy
think,
is the clue there, I think.
Well, what I'm trying to get with is like I actually had a call with the CEOs of Shapeoko today, and tomorrow I have a call with the CEOs of CNC Labs, the alt mill and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually a whole bunch of engineers, and they're really smart, really good at engineering. But the problem is like, hey, I'm at the CNC world, in my opinion, is going down to the more like the same person that may have gotten, it's not a jabber, may have gotten a Glowforge 2 years ago, now wants to jump into the CNC world. They're still not a woodworker. They're not from an engineering background, right? They're using it as therapy, or they want to start a small side hustle. Cool. Like we're targeting that person. And so like those people want to pay off their CNC. I've never heard of somebody saying, I don't want to pay off my CNC with the products I make from it. I've yet to hear that person, right? Or somebody buying a laser, right? Like, oh, I'm buying, I just wanted to throw away money. It's like, no, everybody at least wants to make the money back. So like, how do we make that easier? And this happens even on the industrial level. Somebody was pitching me, I just came back from Las Vegas, and they were pitching me a $500,000 CNC. Okay. It's hilarious. It's like, I'm not going to buy that. But it was like, it's a solid welded steel frame. It's look how big the gantry is. I'm like, nobody cares. Like how easy it is for me to load the machine and press go. Let me see your interface. And the interface was awful. And I'm like, I don't care about the other 99% of the stuff that costs all the money. I don't know where to click go at. Like, and that's the problem with your $500,000 CNC.
And part of that is that CNC legacy, right? It's been around a long time. A lot of people know how to use the complicated thing, and if you give them something easier, they'll go, oh, there's something not right here, right? We don't want to change. So you do, at very least, you need 2 modes. But there are people who just want to slap a board down, turn it on, and push the go button, right? Load a file, just like you would do with a laser. But if you look at things like Lightburn, good example, right? Great tool, but you can look at it and go, this was designed by engineers for engineers. Yep. And this is why laser companies are starting to build their own, because they can make things easier. Yep. But there's nobody like that in the CNC world. I think in part because there's fewer companies and the sales volume is lower, and because it's a much more expensive machine.
Well, and I actually agree with Chris on this one. A CNC will never become a never become appliance. I think there's physical limitations that unless you come out with the metal, like aluminum gantry has to be so big and has to be 6 inches to be able to hold a 3 horsepower spindle. Like, period. Like, there's no a laser, you can keep shrinking it and make it more powerful, and you just need that little that belt, the drive belt, right? You need you can size down the motors to spin it, or you can get a diode laser. There's a lot of different ways to skin that cat to still get it to shoot a beam. CNC, like, I think the physical limitations of it will always keep it, at a certain price point at that certain size.
It will definitely keep it at that price point. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be hard to use, though.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you there. I'm trying to work with these companies on this because we get 50 calls a day from different CNC users, and they all have the same problem. And it's like, just make it a closed loop system, period. Make it a closed loop system, make it easy to press go, have 5 or 6 buttons, have a crazy mode and a simple mode. Like, I don't know why that's so hard. Maybe I should just design my own one day, but who knows?
I told the Lightburn guys I was almost ready to build a competitor to their tool. For this reason, right? Like, it's, if somebody wants to innovate CNCs, and if you're talking to the CNC lab guys, they're probably the kind of company that will do it, right? They're very active on innovation. Those kind of people will come out with features that you won't be able to support with common software. Now, it's a little different in the CNC world because you've got things like post processors. You can kind of mess around with stuff, but this is why laser companies are saying, sorry, Lightburn, we're not going to use you because we've got 15 new features that you don't support, and there's no way for us to plug them in. And it's there's an ecosystem that's missing, both in lasers, but certainly in CNCs.
Yeah. And on track with that as well, I just think there needs to be less engineers, more practical people, like on the final, like, marketing side of it, right? Sounds like you're going for a glow first all CNC. There's RFD on bits and material, make sure everything will play together. Yeah, I mean, I still think there's going to be some kind of limitations, some physical limitations on the spindle, the router. The bit still has to spin at certain RPMs, still needs so much pressure to go through certain woods. You ain't going to get stronger than tungsten carbide. Like, there's this stuff there. I actually really like talking to y'all guys because y'all come from more of laser and CNC, where, I got 4 lasers, 3 Epilogues, 1 Thunder, and, expensive lasers, not, I eventually got a Thunder because the Epilogues are just like, there's just no practicalness in how expensive they are, in my opinion. They're really nice. I love them, but they're quite pricey. And we used Corel Draw, and then we hopped over to Lightburn on the Thunder. And so it was definitely different, right? Definitely
different. For sure.
Yeah. And like, I think Luca has a good point right here. User interface is the issue. Yep. Yeah. 100%.
It's, well, not even user interface, user experience, right? Yep. I come from that world, right? Where I mean, we would get to the point where we would do usability testing and we'd give people a task. And this is something you do in CNCs all the time. You get tasks that you have to complete, but then we'd watch how they do it and how many clicks it took, what they had to do. That's the thing that's missing both from the laser world and the CNC world, because they're mostly engineers who use them, but they have to, and we have this argument, Rick mentioned it already, is a laser or a CNC a woodworking tool? And woodworkers would say no, right? It's just too complicated. The engineers in that crowd would say, yeah, of course it is. And you got to transition from catering to those engineers to catering to, we'll say, normal people, right? Like people who just want to do a job. They don't want to think about the technology that had to happen to make that job go.
Yep. I would 100% agree with that. 100%. I
name the $500,000 machine maker. It could be any of them. There's tons of
any
these
of them. They all have the exact same pitch. Every one of them. If you've ever gotten pitched it, they'll even come to your shop, or they'll go to their big showroom and say how their welded steel frame is better, their spindle's higher capacity, their vacuum tables, they use Becker pumps because they're the best, and this other one uses it. Yeah. Like same thing on the hobby world. It does not change. Like my CNC is better because it's like, can I click go? And like, it's actually, how easy is it to click go? And like, how rigid is it? And in the industrial level, they're all rigid. So that goes out of the window, in my opinion. And so like the hobby ones, like how rigid is it? It's like, oh, it's great. It's like, okay, well, I can bend the gantry. Like that's not good. Not for what I want to do, at least. And obviously there's a little couple other things, but like the main thing for me is, can I click go? And when something breaks, when it inevitably will, because all of us are human and the machine probably going to break, who can I call? And that's it. And if they can answer those two questions really well, and then like you're good. Everything else is just marketing, in my opinion. Everything else. Yeah.
We can't hear you, Rick. Rick, we cannot hear you.
I'm going to get me a quick pour real quick, guys.
Yeah, Rick, there's something wrong with your audio there.
This reminds me of my video conference days. Are you on mute, Rick?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I don't know how that mic, it just died. I switched mics. Ryan, so I was saying there's kind of two phases to your business, right? You're selling items you produce, and then you're selling consumable goods for people who are makers, right? So the portion that you're selling to the makers, do you have a storefront that someone could actually walk in, look through your stuff and buy, or is it only just based off the website?
So we're kind of in the process of opening up a storefront. So it's called DW Hardwoods right now. And we have about, I don't know, probably 5 to 10 subscribers hop by a week, actually. Different people, but a lot of times they're subscribers. And we sell hardwoods out of the back. And then you can get bits, you can get materials. You need stuff planed down. We have all our equipment there. So we had a guy there today using the wide belt. We're charging him for it, but it's not very expensive. And so, yeah, we do have a place called DW Hardwoods. We have a Facebook page for it. And that's it. And we're that's starting to pick up. The progression of that is, I think next year at some point, I'm going to start hosting live workshops. And I would love to have, like, I'm unbiased on CNCs, like as far as, what I have. So like, I'd love to have a Shark, Onefinity, a Alt Mill, a Shapeoko, all of the Jamitsu. I don't care. Have all of them lined up, and people come in there. They want to learn CNCs. They can use each different one, see which ones they like, and go from there. And so that's going to come later on, I think next year. But honestly, I want to get the audience's opinion on that and like what they would like to see, what kind of hands-on training they would like, because you know, it's going to take a lot of work, but we have a spot in the shop we're kind of making for it. And, you know, maybe we even host a live stream with some of the guys that come in, and we can do live demos and stuff. So it's definitely in the works. Yeah. Yeah.
So someone's in Texas. Can they walk in there and look through, or
yeah. They can drive by. I mean, come on in. They can get a tour, show them around. They can get wood. I mean, we have every wood that, I mean, we got, you name the domestic wood, we have it in stock, from mesquite slabs to oak, maple, pecan, cherry, walnut, wide walnut, thick, thin, all that good stuff. Nice grown pecan. We got Osage orange, Paduke, Purple Heart, Black Limba. It's a whole hardwood store in there. And yeah. And then if you want to break a bundle of walnut, you know, we usually have 5 or 6 bundles on hand at all times. You can break it, go through it, we'll plane it, rip it, and you can be on your way. And a lot of scrap. We have a ton of, I say scrap, drops, pallets that we can't use, offcuts. And so we'll like, we just sold one to this guy the other day. It was a 8 to 12 inch walnut drops. And he bought a pallet of them for like $200. And it was a pallet 5 foot tall walnut drop.
I said that's cheap enough. I could have it shipped to me.
Yeah. I mean, just stuff like that. And so he comes in, he buys it, we load him up, on your way. You know, our minimum size in all of our industrial equipment is 12 inches. So once it's 12 inches or short, or 12 and a half inches is like normal size for all our equipment. So once it's shorter than that, we can't do anything with it. It sucks. It pains me to the core. If you really want to know the truth, it is awful, just dreadful. I'm about to get a lathe so I can just start turning stuff so I don't feel so much pain in my body, you know. See these little burls and these cool knots, and it's just like, oh, goes in the pallet. It's like, oh, that sucks, you know.
I'm still waiting for the CNC wood lathe. I'm not sure, like, you can get a CNC metal lathe. You can't really get a CNC wood lathe, at least not one that seems affordable and functional.
That's true.
It just seems obvious to me that there should be. I mean, I turn things on my Onefinity with a rotary, but most of the things I make that are semi-round are chess pieces. So it's not like I turn baseball bats or anything, but that's how I do it. And it's takes 10 times as long, but
yeah, it wouldn't be that hard.
Really, Ryan, I brought up your
what is it?
HDE or what is HDPE?
Yeah,
HDPE.
That the sheets, can you buy a full sheet from you, like a 4x8 sheet?
Yeah, you can get a full sheet. It'll be heavily, like, it'll be, you know, obviously discounted,
different price,
all that good stuff. Yeah. We have people do that as well. I mean, and we get bulk of pretty much everything. So like, we are the cheapest walnut in all of Houston, and we're about an hour south of Houston. But I mean, 8-quarter walnut from us is $7, $7.25 a board foot for 8-quarter FAS walnut, which is really good. Like 4 quarters, like $6. And down here in Texas, that's pretty good, right? Like that's pretty good. I mean, we can get it. We're starting to work with more and more business accounts and different people that, you know, they may want, like we sold 10 sheets of acrylic the other day because we know all these guys. I've done all the homework. You know, I found all the makers of this, found the best people because we've been making products out of it for so many years where, like, you know, the best red oak comes from Cairo, Illinois. Why? Because I've used 200,000 board foot of red oak in products. Like, that's how I know, you know, it went through 20 different sawmills. Like, that's where the best red oak comes from. Really good maple.
Roger and I, Illinois. So if you ever need us to punch someone in the head, let us know.
Yeah.
Hey, you messed up the order, man.
Yeah. It's so yeah. I mean, anything anybody wants. I mean, and we work on pallets shipping. I mean, we have some people that buy panels from us, like custom sized panels, and we'll ship them a pallet of, you know, they want 40 panels that are, you know, I don't know, 40 inches long, 36 inches wide, made of poplar for whatever reason they want that. We'll do that as well.
I was thinking like that plastic to me with this new CNC I got. If I could just get the 4x8s cut in half, it'd probably cut down on the shipping. And then I could probably maximize my signage sign if I wanted to make that. And I know you could shift it, but that was just kind of my logic of thinking. So that's why I was thinking, hey, you know, can you get different sizes?
Yeah. And,
cool.
and as long as your sign is plenty big, you'd be fine. You know, I think one of the manufacturing principles that I found interesting as I was progressing was I wanted the bigger sheet because I can fit more stuff on it. And then I realized, like, whether I put a big sheet or a small sheet, I get the same amount per square foot, right? Let's just say the same amount of product.
Waste.
And so it's so funny. On all of our industrial machines, the front 2 foot gets used 80 to 90% of the time because we're not using full sheets, right? Like, because we make a lot of hardwood panel stuff, right? We're not putting full sheets of plywood, but like, yeah, 80% of the time we use the front 2 foot because it's like, well, you know, the big sheet sounds great, but then when it screws up 4 times as much stuff, and the change out takes forever, and then the bit breaks halfway through. And so we've learned small batches are actually better. It's really funny because it's super counterproductive. You know, we have a 5x10 CNC and one of our CNCs, and we'll only stick one 5x5 sheet on there and only use the front 5 foot because we need the extra vacuum. And so we wouldn't use the back 5 foot because it's small parts. It's really interesting. Like, most of the marketing gimmicks out there are just, you need the bigger's better. And it's like, depends what you're doing.
Roger always preaches that be careful on your sizing because the shipping cost could make or break your sale, right, Roger?
It makes a huge difference. You know, it could be if it's just an inch too long, then you end up oversized.
Oh yeah, I actually have a product. I'll show y'all. So this is our maze game we make. Okay. Well, this is the original, like the second design ever. The original's bigger, but I had to cut off the handles and do that to it for that exact same reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because one box was $14, the other box was $9.
Yep.
And so I had to go to this from this. So, like, prime example. Really funny you said that.
Yeah.
It's the struggle's real on shipping for sure.
Yeah.
There, you got a new subscriber. ATB Marketing just subscribed to you. He's a regular on our channel.
Thank you, ATB. I appreciate you.
Hey, Clayton. Clayton's our Hawaii guy. He's several hours the other direction from all of us. So.
He's looking for a tsunami to come.
Yeah. Well, I guess they canceled all that now, right?
Did they?
Yeah, I think so. Although there's been just like a flurry of little earth afterquakes.
What is your wood cost in Hawaii, Clayton? I'm very curious. If you're still on, what is your wood cost? Like, name different species. You can list a couple. I'd be very curious. You know, unless you're using,
it's got to be outrageous, right? Like 2 kidneys and a toe.
Yeah.
Eucalyptus is something that Hawaii has that I'd like to have a pile of.
Oh, okay. Yeah, eucalyptus. That's okay. That would make sense. Then it's a little, not so much. Yeah, but
I mean, I've seen in Hawaii. I saw like big rainbow eucalyptus. I mean, these things are like 18 inches across. So they're serious trees.
So what are you drinking, Ryan?
I'm a tequila guy over a bourbon, actually. So this is some Añejo tequila. I frequently visit Guadalajara, go down to Tequila, visit the different distilleries. That is my hobby. I say my hobby. That's my guilty.
You may not know it, but Roger's part-time Mexican.
I spend a lot of time in Plaza Carmen.
Okay. Nice. Not part-time Mexican.
Chris is asking if Clayton got hit by the tsunami. It wasn't huge there, though. It was only like 4-foot waves or something.
Interesting.
Still crazy.
Yeah.
I saw it all over Facebook.
So I want to ask y'all guys as well, what, y'all three are very interesting, I guess, perspectives from who I'm usually talking to. So it's like from the usually it's only CNC stuff. Which machine, like, here's my perspective on 3D printers, lasers, and CNCs. 3D printers, to me, I like them, but I don't like to model that much. And so if it's not already made, I ain't printing it. That's on my stuff. And it's like, it's so easy. I don't want to use it that much because I'm a glutton for punishment. And so I only use it for like household stuff, or like we got one because we needed, different couplings for dust collection and stuff. And so we use it for stuff around the shop, parts that are broken, hooks that we need. And that's what I use it for. Because I tend to gravitate towards the things that are harder to learn. I want to use more because there's more of a competitive advantage. That's what I was like, okay, you can buy a 3D printer, you can buy these 3D print farms, and you can have 20 of them and be mocking up stuff, right? Cool. And then I get a laser, and lasers are really awesome. They're definitely more technical than a 3D printer. You can cut a multitude of things, and I think a laser is really dependent on somebody's knowledge of materials that you can stick in it. Because there's amazing, like we do a lot of hats, whether it's this leather, but there's the amount of hats, materials that you can do, and like the different things that laser and look amazing, and all the detail work you can get. And, obviously you're cutting acrylic. You can do a lot of stuff with it. You're just worried about fumes, and then you're worried about power of wattage of laser, speed of laser going through the stuff, right? More or less, right? How many little pips what is it? DPIs, right? You're worried about your DPIs there. But that's like stage 2. And then stage 3 is CNC. I gravitate towards it because it's the most difficult, but it gives me the widest range of my imagination. And so that's why I gravitate towards CNCs. That is my synopsis on it. I get the most creativity from a CNC. The least amount of creativity is from a 3D printer. Even though it can probably do the most stuff, I didn't click.
We talk about this all the time. We say, is passion and income, can they always coexist, right? Mm-hmm. And like you have a passion for something, but if you put your passion first and you want to be an artist, that doesn't necessarily make you a woodworker, or that doesn't necessarily make you a business owner. That makes you an artist who sells your items, right? Yep. So there's respected both. Like, we kind of joke and poke jabs at Skylar, who's a guest on this podcast, as well as the Bearded Viking. They both make these amazing boxes, right? And Daniel is like an old school carpenter. And he does some like exotic woods, and they're really built well. But Skylar she doesn't consider herself a woodworker. Like,
no, she
considers herself an artist.
Yeah, she's an artist.
But the way she builds things, it's like, so there's two perspectives. But I would say, like, in my perspective, kind of like an outsider looking in, when I look at the 3D printing, I haven't got into it. I think like I could use a 3D printer for things for myself and things around my house, things around my shop, but to be scalable, to make money with it, they're too slow, at least at this point. Like, you can build a print. Look at behind Roger. I mean, he has a whole nother room with more of them. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, he couldn't even do a live with us at first because it sounded like a nuclear power plant was like it was doing something crazy in the background. And 3D printers have come a long way. And I think at some point, and I keep saying, I think 3D printers are going to become a point like a printer. Back in the day, not everyone had a computer, not everyone had printers, and now it's like, you don't have a printer. I think that's what's going to happen with 3D printers. I think it's going to become like a normal thing. But I don't think until they're at the level that they're printing fast, that they're going to be scalable like that. Otherwise you have to have a print farm. So that's my whole thing. Like, you have to have the space. They're still expensive and they're still extremely slow. But like for a CNC to be able to run through something with a bit and say, it's not a big deal, I'll just print another one. That's cool. You need a piece. You're our U.S. Navy and you're in the middle of the ocean. You break a piece and you get 3D print it and slap it on. You're in the middle of the ocean. What are you gonna do? That's great, but I still think the speed has a long way to come. I think lasers. I think that they could be a true woodworker who's only using a laser very limited, like stamping their logo, so to speak, on it, you know, and then that's all they want from it because they don't think that laser's woodworking, you know. And then you get some people who are true workers that are, you know, taking a skill set to another level. And we say that a laser doesn't have to be like not a woodworking. It could be another woodworking tool, just like a chisel or a drill press, just another tool in your, you know, your tool pouch, so to speak, that would be expanding your woodworking. So that's cool. That's personally how I think, or how I use, you know, a laser. But then when it comes to the CNC, like I said before, major league, minor league, I think it's more of a major league. And it's, you know, I'm at a new skill set learning. So maybe I'm just going to be, and we made fun of the live we had last week. I said, what should I make? You know, and Clack sent me a fish and said, make this fish. And, you know, everyone's just kind of saying different items I can make. So, you know, being open to challenging yourself, coming out of your comfort zone. You know, if you always stay in your comfort zone, I don't think you're going to be successful in a business. You have to be able to challenge yourself.
Well, you'd be bored too, right?
Yeah.
But Ryan, the challenge I would give to your question is, why is it one or the other, right? It's like, I have a CNC. I've got a Onefinity. I probably make twice as much money off my CNC as I do off the N number of lasers that I have in my shop, or certainly 3D printers. But combined, I can do a bunch of things that I can't do with any one of them, right?
Yeah.
So,
Right.
like, I don't do high volume stuff. I don't make 1 million coasters a year. We've had that discussion numerous times.
That's my category there.
I do purely custom things, right? High revenue, but low volume. And I can't use just one tool to do that. If I had to pick one, I'd pick a CNC because for earning potential, it's higher. But for high value potential, I need a laser, at least one laser, depending on what material I'm working with. So I think you just, like in your case, I would say you're going to be successful if suddenly CNC stop existing and there's a new tool that comes out. You're going to be successful. It's not the tool that makes you successful, right? It's the fact that you like to have problems that are there to solve. And that can happen with any tool, certainly any tool that I've ever used. And those are, the CNC, for example, is just something you use to solve that problem.
Well, so my question back, and this is actually, I made a video on this a couple weeks back, and it made a little people mad, but it was an interesting thing. Why can the CNC generate more revenue than a laser? Like, on level playing field, all things considered equal, you know, majority of the time.
In my case, I can make almost anything with a laser that I make with a CNC. It's just that it's the proverbial wrench for a hammer problem, right? It's just not the right tool to do it. You know, and similarly, there are definitely things a CNC can do that lasers don't do particularly well. So it's not a case of I can make more money with that. I can make more money because the solution to my problem takes less time on a CNC, because it's the right tool for that, to solve that problem.
Yeah, and I think for me, like in the frame of woodworking in particular, I have seen lasers be able to add value, whereas CNC creates more value. And
I would agree with that.
Yeah, where, like, you know, this maze game is, you know, whatever, it's a piece of wood, CNC creates it into a cool maze, which is worth $40. The laser engraves on the back, or engraves the brand, or engraves the acrylic, and now it turns into $50.
So this is a good example where you could get a laser that could make that maze.
Yep.
It's going to take 4 times as long to make it, at least. It's going to be dirty. You have a lot more cleanup work when you're done. That's the difference, right? The CNC just is the right tool for that job.
Mm-hmm.
But if all you had was a laser, you know, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? It's the same thing with a laser. It's the same thing with a CNC, right? You know, there are definitely things I see people trying to do with a CNC that a laser could whip off really quickly.
Steve, Roger and I will argue with that, though, because in our industry, everything is a hammer.
Yeah.
If you're
Correct.
angry enough,
Hammer.
everything is a
Correct.
hammer.
I've had people ask me why I keep a pair of 9s on my table saw. I said, I need to. Well, for those that don't know what 9s are, those are lineman's pliers. So Chris is ring roll, but yeah, so that's a hammer.
Yeah, I can't argue with your process for sure, but it's just a case of if you had that and a hammer sitting on the table and you needed a hammer, which one would you use? Right, you'd use the hammer probably if you needed a hammer.
Yeah, with so many years in the trade.
We're not carpenters.
Well, I'm not a carpenter either, right? That's the thing. It's just like I'm not even a woodworker. I work with wood, I work with metal, I work with acrylic, and the magic that I do is I put a lot of that stuff together. It's not just one or the other, right? And and granted, most of the time when I'm doing anything with wood, I'm either using that rather expensive saw stop I just bought, or I'm using my CNC. It's just what I do with wood most of the time.
Have y'all seen the? I believe Izzy Swan put a post out. I saw it live in Vegas. The Harvey Tools new drill press. It's called the Sniper. Okay, let me explain it to you. I believe somebody on our live last night. Dang it, who was it? I think it was Donnie Claxton, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe Donnie. Maybe Luca can correct me if he's still listening. So it's a drill press, big computer system on it, okay? And he said it's a tool trying to find a problem, okay? And this is so funny. So it's a drill press. It's like, and Harvey is like, a Chinese company, but they're leading a lot of innovation, I believe, in the woodworking world. Cool. Well, they have this drill press, and if you put a mark on a piece of wood, it'll act within 1 inch. The drill press will actually move and find that hole for you, okay? And the swivel table, I'm really dumb on these terms, but the table can actually go up and down automatically. It's on a little ball screw with a little stepper motor, and so it'll raise and lower automatically. And you can control the RPMs, all that good stuff on the computer. But if you put your hand underneath it, the photo eye will sense it and stop the drill press from screwing down, like from drilling. Okay. And their big thing was like, it prevents accidents. Looks really cool when you see it and they do the demonstration. And then you start thinking, how many woodworkers have been around for 50 years and they're walking around with a hole in their hand from a drill press accident? And it was like I was like, that's a really cool thing. Y'all spent probably 3 years on, but you never asked the question, like, are people walking around with holes in there? Like, how many people have missed the X on the drill press? Like, you put the X, they mark it, and they're like, oh my gosh, I just missed it. And my hand got caught underneath because you still have to manually lower it. But
they missed the first step in product design, right? Is there a need?
Yeah.
And I've always talked about the computerized toaster. We can build one, but what would we need it for? Right. And I mean, in lasers are a good example too. I mean, I spent several years in industrial lasers, and the inside joke was a laser is an answer looking for a question.
Yep.
Right. And we would spend a lot of time and money figuring out what those questions were so we could go sell a laser to somebody.
Ryan has a good comment here. It says the best thing about CNCs is 99.9% of the time it does what you tell it to do. The worst part about a CNC is that 99.9% it does what you tell it to do.
That's the missing AI. You see, if it had AI, it wouldn't do that.
That's really good.
Actually, I have Lynn. Yep. Thank you, Lynn. And I actually have a product idea that somebody gave to me the other day, and it's really cool. So it's a maple leaf, and I don't know, maybe y'all been around. So it's a laser engraved maple leaf.
Nice.
And you backlight it or whatever, and it has a little black. Like I just got it yesterday, and if you put it to the light, it'll like really show. But that is a very cheap way to make a product, and so it's just a portrait maple leaf that can be backlit on a piece of white.
I have made many of those.
I've never seen them in my life. I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Well,
you can actually buy those pre-made. They're not worth making, honestly.
Really?
Well, first off, you have to tell them where you live, Steve. Maple Leaf, hence Canada.
Well, yeah, I mean, I haven't made lots of them because it's got a maple leaf on it. I've made lots of those lighted boxes.
Okay. I just thought that was like the coolest use of a, I'm a woodworker. They give me a leaf with my face in it. I'm like, I'm sold. Like
But you see, there's a good example of something that required multiple tools, right?
Yeah.
You could certainly create all of the trim with a CNC. It's probably overkill, but you could do it. And then you need a laser to do the engraving and whatever, right? You definitely need more than one tool. Like you can do amazing things with a CNC, but if you add a laser, that lets you do amazing things plus, right? You can do some additional things that you couldn't do before.
Yeah.
And he said, while Ryan is describing his storefront, I'd like to say that his engraving butcher block blanks are great. I enjoy the fact that these blanks save me a lot of time, money, and material. That's the point of saying that, hey, that's a different skill set in itself, right?
Yeah, I mean, for people who are doing laser engraving, this is a perfect idea, right? Because, I mean, if I want a cheap butcher block of some sort, I'll go to the dollar store and get one because I'm not going to take the time to make one. It's just not worth it. You want to get somebody who's doing that in volume for sure.
Yeah. But I think the leaf is interesting to me because I wouldn't think they use I know they use the laser, but I think the layman's, like the normal person would never say, oh, he used a laser to make that. It's like, how the heck did he get my face in that leaf? And so I think that's just a cool, interesting thing. Like I like to think of products that people don't understand how it's made. And I think a laser like that leaf is interesting enough to be different.
Yeah. It looks like magic, right? And somebody who works in lasers would go, oh, that's easy. That's a 5-minute job. But when you put all of that stuff together, you talk about competitors, it becomes harder for people to compete when your design is, I won't say more complex, but more comprehensive than like you take a cutting board or a charcuterie board.
So since you showed
do something to it, do something to it that most people wouldn't think of.
Since you showed the leaf, Steve, can you share that piece of glass you showed us offline or no?
Oh, yeah. Well,
and Eddie, real quick, man, I want to thank you because Eddie's ordered 5 inlay blanks from us. He's one of the very first people that ordered back right when we launched it. So Eddie, if you're still listening, man, I really appreciate you. And you've ordered 5. You had the Paduk, the Wingay. I appreciate you, man.
Oh, I like Wingay. It's hard to get it smooth, but
I'm gonna kick us off the camera real quick. Hold on. So Roger, Steve,
let me see if I can get. So these are. So this was done with a laser. Oops, sorry. Let me get it back into focus. Come on, there we go. So these things are kind of cool. I mean, this is a piece of 2-inch glass. Like this thing is thick. Of course, we can do the Eiffel Tower. This took 15 minutes to make. Those are.
Is that a CO2?
UV.
Okay, UV laser has to do that though. No other laser can, correct?
Yeah, UV 3D.
Well, you can do it. There are industrial lasers that do this. And what's really cool about these isn't that, hey, look, I can put the Eiffel Tower in a piece of glass. You could do that for years. It's just that the laser that used to do that, because you go to souvenir shops and you see these things, right? Oh. The laser to do that was probably a $60,000 plus laser.
Yeah.
Now it's $5,000 to $6,000.
Wow. I mean, that comes up. I have a picture of me and my mom and my family when I was like 7 years old, and I bought that at Walmart, and I never could figure out how I knew it was some kind of laser that stopped. I didn't know if it was 2 meeting at the same time. That is insane. So UV laser.
Yeah. Okay. But you talk about innovation. The real innovation here is they've lowered the price bar to the point where normal people can do this thing now.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, the material's still expensive. This ingot of glass is probably $15-$20, but you're going to sell that for $150, $100, right? Especially if you personalize it with somebody's actual head in there.
Interesting.
You know, and even this, I would want to do something like I wouldn't just sell this. I would put this in a lighted stand or build it into a box of some sort. So, you know, and that's where CNC would come in. Do something CNC-ish around that to make it more valuable.
Yeah. Lucas Lab said, how many of you are running a 4th axis on your CNC? I bought one, haven't set up yet.
I am.
Do you use it?
Yeah. So primarily I use it. So it has 2 values over, say, a wood lathe. I don't have to pay attention to it. Right. I make a lot of chess pieces. So, you know, if I was just making chess pieces and I was actually good with a lathe, I could pump chess pieces off like crazy. But here I can make a chess piece that's exactly the same as every other chess piece in the set, like down to the fraction of a millimeter. Plus, I don't have to make things that are round. Right. So think of the knight in a chessboard. I make that as one piece. And I used to have one around here somewhere, but I don't have it here right now. But that's primarily what I use that for. But you can use them for pretty much anything. You want to make like little desktop tiki gods or Easter Island dudes, you know, the stone guys. You could make those things very quickly on a 4th axis CNC.
Chris said, I spend much time teaching people their problem is the machine is doing what it's told and how to avoid the problem going forward.
Yep.
Yeah.
Meaning you're the problem. Right?
Yeah. I think that's the hard part with Ego and CNCs. And I want to quickly, before we go to Cosman, I think why Luca's asking that is I know Luca personally, and I guarantee he's going to try to figure out how to do a 4th axis CNC and build on himself and then kind of try to bring it to market. So Luca's that kind of engineer.
Nice.
But I think you make a good point where why isn't there just a singular 4th axis that costs, you know, X amount that, you know, you can put a bolt, you know, you can create stuff with. I don't know the answer to that. That was such a good. Yeah.
I mean, it works very it works very differently than a lathe. It's not turning fast, right? It would be the functional equivalent on a lathe of leaving the piece steady and turning the tool bit like your chisel.
Yeah.
Well, turning it fast, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of the reverse angle on a lathe, but you can do things. What you get is preciseness, and you don't have to sit there and actually do the work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You put the piece of wood on, you push the go button, and you walk away, and you come back in 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and you have a pawn sitting there. Right? You don't have to think about it.
Yep.
Cool.
Interesting.
Cousin said, I have a Jet 1220 wood lathe converted to a CNC with garble. I use carbon inserts designed for aluminum, so sharp blade, so sharp edge.
Yeah, lots. Yeah, so people who create CNC lathes like this for wood, this is the kind of typical configuration. But you have to wonder why nobody's commercialized this.
Yeah. Madra said, I think I paid $12.99 board foot for a 4x4 walnut last time.
Wow, that's a little steep.
Wow.
Yeah, but not too crazy. I'm not going to say that's too awful. Like,
well, with us being in Illinois, it's a lot cheaper up here.
Yeah. But I didn't think that was too bad. I was thinking $20 a board foot. Luca's in Europe, and he was telling us his walnut cost, and it's, you know, they have to import that, and it's not cheap. It's not cheap. Let's just say that. I forgot the price.
The last time I bought walnut here, it was about $11.50 Canadian a board foot, linear foot, board foot, which knock 30% off of that to convert it to US dollars. So,
okay, $8, high sevens.
Yeah, it's pretty cheep. But
Royce, the trick I've learned is trick I've found is learn where you screwed up. We always say fall forward, right? Learn from your mistake. Lessons learned. There's nothing wrong with having lessons learned. Like Roger and I in the union, that's one thing that's beat into our brains is lessons learned. Like if there's an accident, they make you fill this big report. what's a lesson learned. Like they make a big practice of it, right? And
Oh,
you kind
yeah.
of like share it with
Now-
the group.
Now the message here is, you know, you learn where you screwed up. The first step there is you have to admit that you screwed up.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's two things, right? What did you learn? Like learn how not to screw up next time. But is there benefit in the screw up? Right. Because I've done lots of things that were just horrible mistakes. And I keep going back to the charcuterie board handles, right? Where you press the handle into the charcuterie board. The reason that happened was because I screwed up and I made the hole too big.
Do you want to share that story, Ryan? He wasn't. I don't think he may not be familiar with the story.
Let me bring up the a photo here first.
You might find this funny, or you, Miss Ryan.
So I was making charcuterie boards, and let me see if I can get one here quickly. Yeah, here's one. So let me share.
Chris said coconut wood tree is cheap and quiet.
Share my screen.
Really? I saw rainbow eucalyptus. They should just take the bark and do something with it. That stuff is beautiful. That stuff is beautiful.
So this board see these handles. They're actually maple pressed into walnut. This happened because of a screw up. You know, on a CNC, you can cut inside the line, outside the line, or on the line. I cut outside the line. I should have cut inside the line, and I made, on a fairly expensive board, I made the holes too big, and I threw the board over on my workbench. I went for a walk and thought about this for probably a week, and then it was actually a friend of mine, his wife, who's not a woodworker, said, "Why don't you just put some handles in there, some wood handles?" And I pressed a couple. I mean, I know the exact dimensions because it's a CNC, so I made some of these maple handles and pressed them in, and I thought, wow, that's actually better. And now I don't make that many charcuterie boards anymore, but almost all of the charcuterie boards I've made since that mistake have had these handles in them.
What was your tolerance when you press that in?
About 0.1 inch, maybe. 0.1 millimeter, just enough to get glue in there, like you're hammering it in.
Okay, gotcha. 0.1 millimeter. Okay. I just want to make sure. Yeah, 0.1 inch. I'm like, it's quite big. 0.1.
Sorry. I half the people I talk to on this.
Yeah, 0.004 inches.
Yeah, I don't work in inches, but yeah. So that's what happened. And I mean, normally they were. I still have the thing shared here. Normally they were handles like this blue one, and they looked cool, but they certainly don't look as nice as these ones that are pressed in.
No
Agreed.
Kidding. That's a nice look.
Yeah, and that all came out of an accident, right? It was just like, oh man, what did I do?
Yes.
Eddie said, yes, large batch manufacturing has its pitfalls when it comes to batch fails.
Yes.
I was in the disk drive business and process and failed. We'd lose a lot of product. Yeah, I would imagine so.
Good night. Yeah, and I actually like that no tsunami warnings here in Maine. Yeah, you get blizzard warnings, though. It's quite cold. I can imagine.
Yeah, we get the occasional hurricane. I live just across the Bay of Fundy from Maine, so we get occasional hurricanes. They're not fun.
3/8 mesquite. Oof. I don't know what I would do with 3/8. Well, you know, what we did with 3/8 in the past is a lot of different Christmas ornaments and stuff. And I'm gonna send a picture to myself to show y'all, but they're pretty cool. They're pretty innovative with the CNC, and you combine it with the laser, like we did on that big order. And I'll share a photo real quick with y'all guys. It's gonna take me a little bit. I'm an old soul when it comes to a phone, so we'll eventually
circle back on the picture.
Yeah, we'll eventually get this. Good night.
Marty said, has anyone lasered a coconut?
Yes, I have. I've actually made a coconut shell look like a monkey on a laser.
There you go. When I was in Mexico,
video for that?
Yeah,
no, it's actually it's up at the campground in our screen house up on the shelf.
What do they say? If it's not on video, it didn't happen.
No, you can laser coconut pretty easy. It's like lasering a piece of wood.
When I was in Mexico, my son wanted this coconut drink, and it had a little, like they burned something into it. It's like $20 because of the stupid burn. And he's like, this tastes horrible. I was like, what did you think it was going to taste like? I don't know. Never had a coconut before. It's always $20. Can I save it? No, it'll mold. Throw it away.
Let me, I think I got it saved. Let me check. Quicker than I thought. i3D printers are as part tuners. Yep.
Yeah. That's what I use mine for.
Okay. And I make lots of parts. That's why I have so many 3D printers.
Parts
All
like
right,
this.
let's see if I can. Entire screen window right here. So here is a here is some of the ornaments I've done in the past. These are like kind of plain, but there's like a two-sided machining part, and so like this one's clear, and that's at a Purple Heart. But yeah, and so this one's clear. We did this for Chip and Joanna Gaines with the Fixer Upper. That's their two silos, and that's the cross in the middle.
I like those crosses. That's cool.
Yeah, and so you can do those, and like those cost, I'll tell you, like $388 if you want to make a whole bunch. They sell for $15, and then you can engrave. You can laser engrave stuff right here on the front. So let's see if I can share one other photo. You can't, don't get me in trouble for this next one. Let me see that one. There we go. Yeah. So I did these. Don't question it. But I sold these in packs in Houston. This is a while back, but yeah. So it's just epoxy, and that's some ash right here, some leftover wood I had, and you can actually just tie a little bit of leather, and those are sell $15-20, and they cost less than $4 to make, with time included. So, and the process seems a little complicated because like that's solid epoxy. They're 1/4 inch thick. But I started with 3/4 inch material, and then you pour the epoxy, plane it down, and so you end up with 1/4 inch material and 1/4 inch thick ornaments with epoxy. So
nice. That looks awesome.
Yeah. Those are fun to make, and they like. And then we got a big order for them, and it was the Texas ones. It was this Texas one right here, this kind, and then I even like put a glow in the dark pigment in it. And so these were then glowing in the dark on the Christmas tree and stuff. So anyways, those are pretty fun little ornaments. Like I think people look over it, but man, if you approach small businesses with like, hey, we can do an ornament with your logo. That's what these were right here. And they'll order 100 of them. And then guess what? Next year you come to them and you're like, hey, do you want the 2026 version of this ornament? And they're like, yeah, give me 100 more because we send it to all of our customers. And then you come to the next year and they want a 2027 version. And so it's actually a really good business, and they'll actually order in August. They won't wait till December. And so anyways, it's just a cool, I think it's a $1 million business that nobody's doing that I frankly don't have time for, but it's a cool business.
We talk about all the time, business has demographics, right? Like something that would sell in Canada, or something would sell in Florida versus something would sell in California. Texas is like a different state.
Oh, Rick just froze up again.
Am I back?
There you go.
Yeah, now you're back.
Yeah.
Texas is a different state was where you ended.
Texas is a different state. It's almost like its own country. There's a lot of pride in Texas, right? So Texas type things, like there's not a lot of states that have that sense of pride.
Yeah. I mean, Colorado, I don't blame them. Yeah, it's kind of square. But yeah, I mean, I just think there's something there. I mean, we made a whole bunch of different business logos, and they're really easy. You're 3x in the price. You add a laser engraved little, you put 21, or like we were engraving 21 or 2025, and then you engrave 2026 on the back. And it's a really fun way to combine multiple different, machines. So
and the cool thing is that you can use scraps, right? Because you can use all kinds of, stuff you throw in the fire pit.
Yep.
Here's a question for you, Ryan.
Like Ryan says, laser is to add value to CDT products. Yeah, no, Sean, he's from the academy. So is Luca. Yeah, Sean, he actually has he just got given to him a. Sean, I think it's a mini Epilogue Mini, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a Helix. I think it's a Mini. And the guy gave it to him for free. And Sean was like, all right, what's the catch? It's like, I bet you it's a tube. I bet you it's a tube. And it was. It's like, yep, they got you. But yeah, I mean, it's good. Still no dust on that CNC, Rick.
So, Clack, I have the rear dust collector that goes behind the CNC so that I can film and it's not in the way. And I turn my camera, but it automatically turns back towards me. I have the Harbor Freight dust collector, and I'm just going to use a bungee and screw something up there so it moves it around with it.
We use baling twine, hay twine for our square bells, and in my horse barn or whatever. That's what we have, and then we use nothing but Harbor Freight dust collectors, even in the shop. So we have our big one. The rest, we're not even getting as fancy as the canister ones, man. You use that. You can still scan the 20% coupon for the dust collectors we use. Come like $120, and you are sitting pretty. We have 8 of them, I think, floating around in the shop. So
yeah, I used that 20% off coupon on this one.
And what people don't know too, interesting fact, you can look it up on your phone, and you just search Google Images, and they'll scan it off your phone until one works. It's really cool. Yeah. Still go there all the time. My favorite store.
Yes. Working Pros, can you pocket with a laser?
Well, yes and no. It's kind of messy.
Not really.
Yeah. This is one of those places. Yeah, you can do it, but why would you want to?
So
if you have a CNC, you wouldn't want to.
But I guess Lynn's asking, could you do an intricate inlays on something with the laser? So you'd have to do
right? Yeah, you can. I've done it.
Skylar does that.
Skylar's done it all the time, man.
Okay.
So she doesn't have a CNC, so she does tons of inlays with it.
How thick is that?
Well, you're pushing it at a 1/4 inch probably.
In what wood?
Any wood, doesn't matter.
She uses all kinds of wood, even exotic woods. Yeah.
Okay. Because Lynn has.
I mean, you're not going to do it with your $199 10-watt laser, but
no, you're going to need that thunder laser or CO2 laser or high diode laser.
Well, you don't even necessarily need a CO2, but you need at least a 40-watt diode laser.
Yeah.
What would be y'all's minimum recommendation to be dangerous with a laser? Not like dangerous as 20?
Well, I'd say 30
20
now, but
yeah.
I'd
go no less than 20 watt.
30 is kind of the sweet spot. I think it's still low enough power that you can get really nice engraving because the beam is still fairly small. But it's got enough power to do actual real cutting. Once you get into 40 watt, too much power, and then the beam gets bigger, and they're not great for engraving. And below 20 or 30 watts, you get good engraving, but not great cutting.
So I'm gonna side tangent here. So I have my Thunder's a 130 watt. All of my other lasers are 120 watt, and then I do have a 60 watt. And I have noticed the 60 watt does the best and darkest engravings. Even if I turn the 120 watt down to 50%, power, I think the travel on it or something is not making it engrave as dark. So like if I want a dark engraving on a walnut piece of wood, I will use my 60 watt laser. What is the math behind it?
The 60 watt is a CO2?
They're all CO2s, correct.
Okay. Well, it shouldn't matter. It could be just distance. Like
60 watt is a smaller bed. It's 24 by 18.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Okay, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, the epilogue lasers will be RF, so they're really not designed to do dark engraving. They're just designed to do nice engraving. The 130, by the time you get it turned down to the point where it's engraving without burning, it's going to be probably lighter than you want.
So, can you state that again? So RF lasers are different than CO2, like glass tubes?
Yes. It's the way the beam is constructed is different.
Okay, yeah,
So
because
it's actually like a pulse. It's
multiple-
actually like a high frequency pulse laser, right?
yes.
So it's hitting the wood and actually just basically blowing little pieces apart. Whereas a CO2 lasers, like a standard CO2 with a tube, is actually doing burning.
Okay, I have noticed that with the Thunder versus all my other
Yeah.
epilogues I have, and I
Yeah.
actually like the burn from the Thunder better.
Yeah, there's times when you want that, right? Especially if you want to do like a color, like a dark engraving.
So why is the RF better?
It's got a smaller beam.
So it's going
So
to have
like
more
finer
precision
cuts.
designs.
Yeah,
Okay.
so like a typical CO2 laser, the spot size is anywhere from 0.2 to 0.4, depending on how much money you spend. The an RF laser will be on par with a diode laser for beam size, so smaller.
Okay, that makes sense.
But you get to do
set
all
up
the things you
everything
would
correct.
do with a CO2 laser because
So
it's
it's
a
like
CO2
coloring
laser.
with a fat jumbo crayon versus fine tip color pencil,
Yeah,
right?
a draftsman's pencil.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right.
So you can draw with both, but it's just the beams
Yeah.
size.
Okay. I didn't know if you're going so far as Rose Art versus Crayola. I was a Rose Art family. You know, grew up on that Rose Art, baby.
Yeah.
You know
Get me some Rose Art.
You know what's funny is that kids are going back to school, right? And my daughter always wants to go back to school shopping with me, not my wife, because I grew up a poor kid, right? And I had that pencil when you used the eraser, it just made red all over the paper.
Yeah.
You know, like you might as well not even use it. I had the
Yeah.
generic crayons. So when I take my daughter, whatever you want, she gets it. I don't complain. Whatever you want.
Yeah.
You know, you want the best pencils? All right. You want the best crayons? All right. Well, I said,
Yeah.
why'd you get that? Because I never had that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You will
So-
be that
so-
person in the school that has the mechanical pencil that you can click on the side and that thing goes down because only the rich kids had that. You know,
So Clack answered your question. I was about to, and then you asked me about RF lasers. But if you raise the focus, like so, take the laser to focus and then raise it up maybe a millimeter or probably 2 millimeters, you'll actually get a darker engrave.
Okay, that'll spread out that beam that's coming in.
Yeah, well, you'll get more overlap between like rows, so you still have the same effective dots per inch or lines per inch. It's just that the beam is not focused as much, so you distribute the energy across.
You're actually defocusing the laser, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Raise it up a couple of millimeters, and it'll be darker.
Okay. Thank you, Tlackcheck. Yeah, we met each other in Atlanta at IWF at a veteran party. So we were yeah. So anyways,
Nice. I think I saw that. I think I saw a video you guys did together in a lobby or somewhere.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah, then do a fast outline. Never thought about that. Yeah, that'll darken up the borders. Okay. Yep.
Lucas says, "Hey guys, 3 a.m. here. Time to sleep. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it."
Thanks,
Lucas wild. Lucas crazy. He love him, man. Love him to death.
3 a.m. That's about the time I start waking up in the morning.
Whoa, Madra 3212. Whoa, back up now. Name brand pencils. Calm down. Calm down. It was a real number 2. We had to draw on it with a pen. Watch out. We had whatever one the kids dropped on the floor and didn't pick back up, man. I'm with
They said RF have finer beams, so they're cooler. They use metal tubes, pricey.
Yep, 5,500 to replace one on a Epilogue Fusion 3x4.
Yeah, and it's one of, like, people always say, why are epilogues so expensive? This is one of those reasons, right? It's.
But how long does it last? I mean, that's a pretty decent. You get a pretty amount of hours on there, right?
It'll last a long time. But
They say that. I call BS. That's why I switched to a Thunder. We were replacing them about every 18 months and using them six hours a day.
Wow.
5 days a week.
So that's not unusual.
I know it's not unusual, but god dang, it was like, because they charge you a core fee So it's $5,500 to replace it. They charge you a $1,500 core fee, and then they'll refund it to you whenever you ship it in. And so you're looking at $7,000 out of pocket, and then they'll end up refunding you, $1,500. And it was just like that's like literally almost over a third of the price of a Thunder, just for the tube.
It does make me wonder how Epilogue is still in business. Right? It's like they have great stuff. There's no question.
Oh, because they're charging. I bought my lasers for $45,000 a pop.
Yep.
Wow. The reason I bought them, I needed the table space, and so obviously they paid off themselves. I will say I loved them, used them, but they're after 2021, they changed the way their RF unit fires. And so I will only get, or after 2020. And so whenever they replace the block, I will request a used unit from 2020 or 2019 because it's better. The 2021 and further are fatter lasers, fatter beams. And they're we're cut a lot of 1/4 inch Baltic birch and 1/8 inch acrylic. And it's just these fat, ugly lines. There's no way of homing it. We had the guy come out, and usually on laser techs, more more than them because they're asking, did you focus the laser? It's like, yes, I focused the laser. I checked all 3 mirrors. Yes. Did you clean the mirrors? Yes. There's only a beam shoots out, it bounces a couple times and goes down. There could only be a couple fixes. Anyways, don't get me on that tangent. I've argued with that guy. Switched over to a Thunder, and the only reason I switched over to a Thunder, quite frankly, is they like YouTubers. Let's just say that. So I was like, hell, I'll do that. I'll make it simple. And we use our Thunder to cut out 1/8 inch acrylic or 1/8 inch plywood and engrave on it. We make wooden note cards right here. So we make wooden note cards. So if you ever order from CIC Workshop, you get a handwritten card. We'll write on the back and we'll engrave on the front. And we hand write. We have a person that we pay is a full timer. We'll write about 6 hours a day thank you cards to our customers. It's cool. We will spend over $40,000 this year on thank you cards. So
that says something.
Yeah.
David said I received an ad. Oh, go ahead. Right.
I said received an ad from Bamboo Labs yesterday for PLA filament called Tough Plus. I know anything about it? Yes, I do. I have played with a sample roll of it. You need a higher print temperature. I'm talking at your extruder, you need at least 230 degrees because it takes. If you try to run it like regular PLA, you'll end up clogging your nozzle. And then I had a little bit of adhesion issues. I haven't played with it a whole lot, but I actually had to end up using a glue stick, and I hardly ever do that. But the Tough Plus is touted to be as strong or better than ABS, but without all the fumes and smell. And although at that higher print temperature, you will smell the plastic a little bit, but you're not going to have clouds of fumes or anything.
So do you think it's feasible or something it's still in early production, not ready there yet?
I haven't had enough experience with it. Actually, I've got it sitting here. But I had a shift because I bumped the printer. That was my fault.
What is it?
There was a print shift in it. It's a riser for.
Oh,
this is a riser for a longer B1 laser. But I had a little bit of I don't know if you can see the shift in there. That was my fault for bumping into the printer while I was fumbling around down there. But it's some pretty tough stuff. I mean, you can slam this on the floor; it doesn't shatter or anything. So far, so good.
Some would say Tough Plus.
Yeah.
Or just tough. Tough
to use. I really move it manually, raise it, and get a thicker knife.
Got it.
Eddie says, I used to be a place in Oregon with to recharge those lasers. Yeah.
I would love to meet that guy. I would love to meet
that. Eddie, maybe you should post it in the comments below if you have some contact information.
Yeah, no kidding. I'll give you pay you a fee.
Chris said that's a bit like asking someone who has been in IT if they turned it off and back on.
Yeah, it's like when the network guys come to fix anytime my Ethernet internet goes down, and they'll start trying to explain things to me, and I'll say, look, I know what this is. I built a lot of this technology back in the early day. And they're like, oh,
Yeah.
because I'll start asking them questions, like what's the, what's the node frequency of your fiber lines or whatever. And they're like, what? I don't know that.
Sawdust and hippies are like this. Just finished up 300 number 2 pencils for our church back to school bash. Hope that's enough pencils rule. Nice.
Yeah.
I love to see the jig that you made for that. Those pencil jigs are really cool looking. I've always liked them. Yeah.
I have one of those table turners that I have still in the box, I think about a year.
Yeah, I just
got
built
just
a
for-
rotary one.
Just for that reason. So
Yeah.
I have to get
the
it
rotary
out.
one is good because as the pencils are coming off, you can keep replacing them, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
No, you do not need a heated chamber for PLA or the Tough Plus. I actually did mine on an A1, which is just open bed slinger. I didn't do it on one of the other ones back here behind me because I had them running with something else. But you do not have to have a heated chamber. At least that's what Bamboo Lab says.
Interesting.
So what would make you want to use that though versus just the run of the mill stuff? What's the advantage?
It's tougher. It's more break resistant. Let's say you're wanting to make a shelf bracket. It'd be less apt to break or snap, or it's from what I've played with a little bit here. I've only done a couple little things with it. And I've thrown it on the floor and I've smacked it with a hammer, and no, it doesn't break. Of course, I didn't hit it all that hard, and I used a real hammer.
Oh, there you go, Steve. I'm proud of him.
You didn't use your pliers?
No,
I'm still waiting for this 3D printer that prints continuous carbon fiber.
Well, what about I use PETG, which I'm very ignorant on 3D printers. Is that good for shelf brackets? Just a quick question for my own.
Yeah, it's tougher than PLA is.
Okay, but
It's good
AMS
for outside too.
Yeah, you don't use PLA outdoors.
Okay.
The UV from the sun it'll turn brittle and just fall apart.
So if I were to get a couple spools of something I want to use in the shop that's hardcore for dust collection, stuff like that, what filament would you say I need?
Oh, Pet G.
Yeah,
Pet
I
G?
use
Okay.
Pet G.
Okay.
I use Pet G for almost everything now.
Okay. Perfect.
Eddie said I have an old Epilogue that Epilogue no longer has replacement parts for it. It was on Windows NT. Yeah, there you go.
Oh,
Went way back at that one.
Yeah.
sounds like that one should be sent to the scrap.
Windows NT was a beast though. It wasn't a resource hog and it just ran, right? There was no real lag. It was definitely for the commercial use.
It's because
Sawdust and hippies.
Dave Cutler, the guy who built it, came from the mainframe world.
Sawdust Hippie said engraved pencils with X2 F1. Great job. 8 at a time. Hee hee.
That's 38 changeouts, by the way, if y'all are curious.
Eddie said laser repair service in Connecticut advertised on eBay reaches Epilogue laser tubes. There you go.
Eddie, my man, I'm writing it down.
Take a picture of that.
No, I'm already there. It's on paper.
This is
Literally, we took an Epilogue out and replaced it with our Thunder because we didn't want to pay the $5,500. Like we moved a $45,000 laser out of our shop, like wrapped it, shrink wrapped it, put it on the balcony, put it on a shelf, put it on a pallet rack, and put our other one in there because we didn't want to pay that shit because we were just so mad at them. So perfect.
eBay services disturb me a bit. This is kind of like buying a steak at 7-Eleven.
It's also someone of getting cheap advertisement, like we were talking about the whole Etsy thing. So
interesting. Connecticut.
I mean, ultimately, I guess if they save you some money, it's a good thing.
there you go.
Yep.
You
My
got it?
man. Thank you, Eddie. Yeah, good.
Dana said, do you use a CNC for pencils? I think you wouldn't want to because the whole idea of using the lasers, it blackens it, right? So not only does it engrave it, but it leaves a...
See, going back to my previous comment, you could use a CNC for pencils, but why on God's green earth would you ever want to?
Yeah. No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Just think about aligning 200 pencils to get them perfect so you can see and see them.
Wood Pro Design said, I have an X-Tool P2 and I primarily use it to cut acrylic. I was able to cut 3/8, but had 100% power and speed of 3. That seems slow. I was told that I could cut half acrylic. Can it?
Just told that.
I
Mitch
don't
wants
have
to
the
know,
P2.
Yeah, I think you'd be tough to cut a 1/2 inch with the P2 acrylic. So CO2 lasers, if it's something like black acrylic, a diode laser is going to cut it way better than a CO2 laser will. But any other color of acrylic, yeah, you're going to have to use a CO2.
So what watt? I'm seeing that a P2 is a 55 watt.
Yeah.
So
now, having said that, it cuts really well. Like it's a really good laser. I mean, I've got a 100 watt CO2 laser that I built, and a P2S sitting beside it, and I use the P2S almost all the time.
So what's the downfall of, like, let's say that 55 watt hypothetically can, but you have to run it like amazingly slow, but you don't care about time. Is there anything bad with running that laser super slow? Like, will it scar the acrylic? Is it going to like kind of puddle up when you're cutting it? Is that?
Yeah. So you wouldn't normally, I mean, for something that's thick like that, you could just do multiple passes.
Okay.
Right. So rather than going really slow with 100% power, you could go 100% power, but go much faster and do maybe 2 or 3 passes. It ends up taking about the same amount of time, but you get a much cleaner cut. Okay. And the advantage of something like the P2 is between passes, you can actually drop the laser focus by whatever, right? By a millimeter if you want. So you can continue to cut deeper and deeper. Yeah, but having said that, I wouldn't use a P2 to try and cut a 1/2 inch acrylic.
Yeah, the max my 120 watts said is it can cut is 1/2 inch acrylic, and I don't trust it because that angle starts just that.
Yeah, well, yeah, you could use a longer lens. You could use like a 5-inch lens.
Yeah.
Most lasers come with like a 2.5 or something.
Yeah, we'll stick a 4-inch lens in there for cutting, but it's just not. Yeah. I don't like it.
No matter what, when you get thick, you're going to start to get
gas station sushi. There you go.
Yeah, gas station sushi. That's perfect example.
Ain't nothing wrong with gas station sushi. Chris said, I just made a 100 pen jig for someone. They must have big orders. Yeah.
Good night.
Eddie said, hey, Steve, I got it free and was going to convert it to
a Ruida. Yeah, change the controller in it.
Yeah, so he's converting it.
The Omtech came out with a sub 2K machine. Yeah. I actually I still have my FSL Muse 3D in it. I've often considered buying a Ruida controller for it and swapping out their controller, but it's one of those things. If I had more time, maybe. But
Roger, you're up.
No, I don't have a P2.
This is a laser question for the P2 question. Check your mirror alignment and set focus below the surface. Yeah. So alignment is always one of those things that you have to do on a CO2 laser on a regular basis to get optimal performance. You also want to clean the mirrors every now and again. If you drop your focus below the surface, the first bit of the surface might get a little messed up, but you'll be able to cut deeper.
Clear acrylic. Okay.
Yeah, clear acrylic is. Yeah. Can you put a longer? No, you can't. To my knowledge, anyway, you can't change the lens on a P2.
It's a fixed lens, right?
Yeah.
Steve,
you can take it out, but I don't think they offer any other lenses.
Steve, I got a question for you. Slow, the acrylic can melt back together as you go. I've actually had that happen, Chris.
Yes, it's very disturbing.
Yep, and then it shards up, and then it's just not good. Steve, I got a question. Why don't you like lasers on CNCs? I have this question a lot, and I do not have the best explanation why. I know it's not good. I just do not have you probably have a better explanation.
So there is a place for it, but for the most part, you have to, one of the biggest problems is you have to be able to evacuate fumes, right? Because lasers make smoke. But you know, if you're one of those guys who bought a $500,000 CNC, if it's not doing CNC work, it's losing money, right? You can get a laser easily that'll do that and have two tools rather than one, and use both of them at the same time.
Yeah, I would agree. So like the ROI, right? Your return on your investment for the CNC, what your hourly income could be by that CNC running is going to be way higher than what your diode fiber laser would be doing. That would be doing something that would be an accent piece on the wood that you created with the CNC. So you'd be better off having two separate tools and have that CNC keep running, making something else.
Yeah, and that's the biggest problem in short is when it's being a laser, it's not being a CNC. So
because the CNC has a higher overhead cost and because it can't go back and forth as fast as a laser needs to, correct?
No, because the CNC could make more money per hour than a laser. So when you're using your CNC as a laser, you're not using it as a CNC.
But yes, you're also right, Ryan. It can't move. Like it's designed to move a 30-pound spindle around, right? So it's not going to move fast.
Yeah.
Not relative to what a laser can move. I mean, some lasers are moving, 600-700 millimeters a second.
Yeah. And if the CNC is not enclosed, to the point what Steve said, all that fumes is just going in the air.
So I'm going to argue because I know these are questions come up. So this is me arguing as a bystander, innocent bystander. Yeah, but I don't have space for a laser, and this extra attachment is only $400. Why not just get it and attach it to my CNC?
Yeah, that gets back to Rick's point. It's $400, but you're taking a $6,000 machine and you're turning it into a $400 machine.
And you could buy a halfway decent laser for $400.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, the one use case, I said there was a use case for this, is if you need to engrave something that's huge.
Yeah.
Then you might want to do that. But honestly, is there anything a laser is going to do to a piece of wood that a CNC can't and do it a lot cleaner?
But let's say, Steve, I cut out a whiskey smoker and I'm going to engrave all the state outline on that whiskey smoker. And I don't have to touch it. I click go, I go to sleep, I wake up, and it's laser engraved. Would it?
Well, I wouldn't be going to sleep with my laser running at all.
Okay. Because a laser with wood could be unpredictable, especially with wood fillers. Store box start wood. We talk about this all the time, and they just go up in flames.
Okay. No. I once again, we get 50 calls a day on CIC Workshop.
We always say that, like, people say, well, where's the easy button, right? All YouTubers, influencers that make all these projects and they come out perfect. They do back-to-back video reviews. Like, we don't tend to do back-to-back. We do video reviews, but we've been more selective on doing reviews, because what is it, quality over quantity, right? We're turning down more than we're accepting. But we also share our fails. And when we actually shared our fails, that video went like through the roof because people were happy that we actually said, like, we're not perfect. Like, just because, like, we made this video and, like, this looks great doesn't mean that, like Steve said in one of our videos, he was showing a product and at his feet were like 30 fails, right? But like in the video, like, here it was. So that video was literally kind of focused around, like, here are our screw ups. We're human. We're not perfect. Like, and it was because that all stemmed from me bringing it up because someone tried to copy one of my projects and finally came clean and said that they couldn't duplicate what I was doing, was asking for help, so
that's nervy.
So I got a question for you guys as well. This is so fun. Like, this is by the way, amazing time. What do you think YouTubers are like? This is what I'm seeing is that, like, I'm not saying like the Blacktail Studio or anybody like that. I'm saying somebody in the range of, let's say somebody wants to start a YouTube channel. They're starting from zero. They get to around 10 to 30,000 subscribers, somewhere around there. They've been doing it a few years. Where do you think it starts? Like, where do they start screwing up? And like, where do you see going wrong? Where do you see audience dropping? Y'all seem, this is it's an interesting question to a whole bunch of guys that have a lot of followers, but I think it'd be interesting perspectives y'all may have.
I actually have a video coming out. Go ahead.
I break the YouTube rule, whereas my channel is not just about lasers, not just about 3D printers. I cover 3D printers, lasers. I do have 2 small CNCs. I don't use them a whole lot. I do a lot of stuff with sublimation and heat press work and die cut with a Cricut, and I just spread stuff all over the place. So I have a lot of viewers from that. But like I say, I've broken the rule. You're not supposed to do that, but I do it anyway because I don't care.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to be dropping these videos. It's a 50,000 subscribers lesson learned and a 5 million views lesson learned. And I would say that the 2 biggest things that I would say the takeaways from that is that don't jump on the hype videos, right? Like that if you're always doing the latest and greatest this, or you're always doing, unless you're like a news content creator, then you don't always have to be the latest and greatest. You just want to be relevant, right? If you make relevant content, it doesn't matter. I hadn't made a video other than the Shop Talk Live in 3 months, and I hit higher numbers than when I was putting out videos because my content was still relevant, like, so that means something. But the other thing is that don't chase views, right? Because you could do really, really well on YouTube as an influencer, having way less subscribers, way less views, but having a longer, what do they call that? The threshold that people are watching it. You know what I mean? Retention. Yeah, you have a high retention.
Yep.
So Joe Blow put out a video, and his view on this same exact topic got 2 million views, but his retention's 18 seconds, and I got 100,000. By my retention's 35 minutes. So don't chase the views. You can do some real good. You can do really good with a smaller following that's dedicated. My son was playing soccer, and Steve and Roger hosting the live. And I was getting text message and emails saying, "Hey, bro, is everything cool? What's going on?" You know what I mean? So people really get to know you, and you grow a strong knit community. And I think you're way better off, with a strong knit community versus really people don't know who you are. And so another thing is that the subscriber thing, like every Sunday I do a Christian podcast. And like Roger said, I'm messing up the algorithm, right? Because my channel is based on side hustles, right? But the whole thing with the scripture deep dive on Sundays, I say there's no like get rich quick scheme. There's no get overnight. So sometimes in business and success, you have failures and you just need the uplift. And that's what that's about, right? When I did that Christian podcast, I lost 2,000 subscribers like within a couple weeks. But what happened was those 2,000 subscribers that dropped, that made me think like, should I not be doing this? And I said, no, something told me to do this. I'm going to continue to do this. After I lost those 2,000 subscribers, I gained like 7. So what did that mean? That means that those 2,000 subscribers that I had really weren't like digging me, right? They weren't like really understanding me. And those 7,000 really were more kind of diehard. They understand what my channel was about, and my retention went way up and my following went way up. So just don't chase views, just focus on retention and, focus on something that you're generally interested in, because it's going to really show in the video.
Yeah. For me, I find I get into trouble YouTube wise when I forget why I created my channel, which was to, I'm old. I've got all this nice gray hair up here.
At least you have hair.
I haven't gone that far down the path yet. But the whole point of my channel was to build the next generation of makers. Because, hey, I'm going to retire someday. Somebody has to be able to take on that work, right? Every once in a while, probably every 3 months, I kind of forget about that. And then I dawns on me and I have to kind of retool. And I find when I do, then things like I create videos that people want to watch, which is the most important thing.
You know, but where do you think, like, okay, and I'm gonna dig a little bit deeper, so I think this is like, I think there's a lot of guys out there that want to make a channel, and I think they will, and I think they're going to find some success. Do you think, like, I know of a few that have, when they start to seem inauthentic because they've been just a little bit bought, even though, like, y'all know the business model, right? Like, you're starting to do it, you want to make some money with it. Like, okay, 2 Trees laser, cool. I'll review your stuff for $1,000 for this video. And you're trying to feed a family, and you're trying to do what's right. And I'm not knocking it. I'm not knocking it. That's what I'm saying. It's like, do you think that hurts a channel, or nobody, like, do you think
we always say we promise we'll never sound like an infomercial, and if we do, let us know.
I mean, all of us have reviewed stuff. There's a difference, though. Like, when you watch some YouTubers, and I won't name any names, but they'll turn into salespeople.
Yeah.
And I try not to do that. And certainly, if I take on anything, I don't sign.
But why?
Usually, I don't sign contracts to say, because I don't want a company to say, "Oh, we get to tell you what to say." Not going to happen. And I turn down a ton of things. I turned down 3 today that I'm just not going to do.
Yeah.
Because they don't fit what people in my channel, people who watch my channel, are asking for.
But why do you think that hurts? Like, my question is, why do you think internally that hurts a channel? And the reason I'm asking that is, you know, everybody says, like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to sound inauthentic. What is the audience saying whenever they're like, because I think the same thing goes for different products and different stuff like that. Like, why do you think that hurts your channel so bad? What do people see?
Well, when I personally watch those type of channels, because not only do I create content, I go to content. Like, for instance, the CNC. When I was looking to buy the CNC, I looked at the alt mill, the Shapoko, and this, right? And as soon as I see the floating camera and the Boeing should sound like the 70s porn music going on, and the vocals, and then it sounds like a pure infomercial, you lost me. I'm no longer interested. Stop. Because
is this why you complained about the music on one of my videos?
Commercial. That no, what I'm saying, no, I only watch your OnlyFans on Saturdays. But what I'm trying to say is that I want to see someone who's like a person. Like, I don't need all that polished. I don't need you to. It doesn't have to look like a commercial. Just tell me flat out, hey, here it is. You know, be a person, be a human being, be flawed. You know, talk to me like you're a friend, like I know you. Be genuine, and then you got my attention.
Yeah, I mean, for me, reviews. I don't think reviews inherently hurt a channel. I think salesmanship hurts channels, and you know, people need to understand that YouTubers, that's a big part of their revenue, right? And but at the same time, I'll say more recent strategy for reviews is I review things that I see will move industry forward, right? Like, here's a laser that does something no other laser can do, or you know, and that's this kind of thing, right? You know, something that somebody who's watching my channel can go, oh, I want that laser because I want to do those things. As opposed to, oh, you're just trying to sell me something. And, you know, and I try never to do that. And it honestly bothers me when I see people leave comments on a video that I've done that, oh, you're just trying to sell this. No, I don't care if you buy it, right? If you do, use my affiliate code, that helps. But if you don't, right? It's like, I'm not going to force something down somebody's throat. I use
prime example. Sorry, Steve.
No,
prime example. The 2 Trees that you brought up. I mentioned earlier on, hey, I got the 2 Trees. The reason I really wanted the 2 Trees is my idea originally was to learn the CNC software, since this guy was going to take months on end to show up. And my hopes were that I kind of was able to play with the software enough so that when this shows up, I can hit the ground running, right? And Steve said, Rick, so when you do the review, you have to be honest in the comparison and let them know really realistically what you're getting for $500. And there was this big discussion on me accepting the 2 trees. And I got brutally attacked online. And I would say, I won't mention names, but particularly 3 different influencers who said, why would you review the 2 tree CNC? And what was funny is, fast forward 6 months, guess what they're reviewing?
Yeah. And I mean, I've done that same 2 tree CNC, and I did it because if you're a first time CNC person,
yes,
I wouldn't tell anybody to spend $6,000 on a Onefinity, right? Because you don't even know how to turn a CNC on.
4,000.
Buy something cheap. This one is a decent one to start with. It's not the best one, but it's a decent one to get you going. It has all the same principles, and then you can migrate forward, right? That's why I reviewed that one. It's not always about the highest end equipment.
Well, I think,
and let's be honest, Steve, it could be that that's all you could afford, right? And if that's all you can afford, then maybe that could eventually earn income to buy this, but it's just not going to happen. It's not an option.
Lots of people have an interest, but they don't have a massive budget, right? Maybe they're just getting started with a side hustle. They don't have any money, right? They're scraping money together to buy a 2 trees CNC, but they want to use that to learn and try and leverage a bit of cash to buy the next generation.
I would personally tell that person to get a laser first. If they can't scrape enough money up, if they're scraping up enough money to buy a $500 CNC, I would much rather you buy a $300 laser and if you're really trying to start a side hustle, this is my opinion.
I agree.
Get that. Get the business acumen working, engrave some pencils.
I agree with that point. If you're doing an apples comparison, you're probably getting a better piece of equipment for $500 laser versus $500 CNC.
Yeah,
because the CNC in general is a more expensive item.
Yeah,
but if you have someone who's just locked in, right? But I'm not going to lock horns with someone, right? There's an old saying: somebody asks you a question, but they don't like your answer. So, absolutely are going to buy a CNC.
I grind my teeth when I hear somebody say they want to buy a 3018. It's like, just don't, right?
Yeah. I mean, but I think that's like a fair, it's interesting. And the reason I asked that question is that the people watching that want to start a channel that have done a little bit, you have no idea how many emails you will start getting after you hit 5,000 subscribers or even 1,000 subscribers that you get every single day. So when you judge somebody on doing a review on a certain machine, just know they've probably gotten 100 other emails about other machines, and it's fascinating to me. So that's the reason I asked that question is it's like, oh, you start to seem inauthentic, and it's like, no, we picked the one out of 100 emails we got, and it's just like it's an interesting scenario.
And also the same and like I said, I've gotten much more selective about what I review.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, you get better, but it is a business journey. It is you're gonna mess up, and it's fun along the way, but it's just the most judgmental fun you'll ever have in your life.
And it's also, you see YouTubers as and as you're growing, you don't understand why, and you think they sold out. Like every, I think, successful YouTuber has a course, right? It's just what did I say? You've made it to that portion, and you're the point of your career, right? And you think, well, why would they do that? And then it's like, now I probably get 20 to 30 emails on, hey, Rick, what would you suggest on me being able to get more subscribers? Hey, Rick, what would you suggest on being able to get more? And it's like, man, so I said, hey, I'm going to put these 3 videos out there for members only. It's not a course, but at least you become a member, I'm putting it on there. And the only reason I made it a members only video was because if I just post it publicly, a lot of people just take your information, regurgitate it as their own, right? But I didn't understand that until I started getting 30 emails a day asking me those questions. Now I'm like, I kind of get now why all these courses are becoming involved, because you see a need for it. When if you're getting a repetitive, those same type of questions, you're like, well, I'm going to capitalize on that. But until you get to that point, you may not understand why.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Or even criticize.
Yeah, it's interesting journey. I think any business does the same thing, whether you're making CNC products or laser products. You don't understand why somebody doesn't engrave anything. Like, why don't you engrave this stuff with a laser? And it's like, well, because hats are what sells. So I'm going to do a whole bunch of hats. Like, that's what I use a laser for. Like, I don't engrave pencils. I engrave hats. You know, like there's this, it's just an interesting road to go down. And so I think to the audience that's watching is, don't always be learning. Don't judge. Just kind of be very open and receptive, because YouTube is just like another business. It's interesting. It's crazy. It's wild. It's just as judgy, except you hear it directly in the comments versus people talking behind your back that you never hear about.
Yeah.
And it's fun. So, like, try to understand the business model behind anybody that you see. I mean, we reviewed a cutting board guy yesterday on a CSE Academy, and they sell 22,000 cutting boards a year. And it's just a simple board of walnut that they engrave with a laser. And I would never do it because it's going to warp and it's going to, there's no feet on it. It's kind of crappy. And I do mine thicker, but he's selling his for more money, and it's just a cool laser design on it. And we're very judgy on it. We're like talking crap about him. But at the end of the day, like, that's his business model. And like, I don't agree with it, but I want to understand how it works, right? And I think that goes a long ways to any CNC creator or any YouTube creator, any laser guy. It's like, I put the ego to the side and go, why is this working if they're doing it? And don't always think that it's working. Some people fail fabulously. Some people fail, with the spotlight shining on them, and they just want to seem like they're super successful. So, that's why I hate to go off of other people's prices, because you don't know if they don't want to make money. You don't know of what kind of competitive advantage they have. You don't know if they know the guy that owns the laser company and they get 50 free lasers a day. Like, you don't know.
Right.
But anyways, I just think that's if nobody gets anything from it, I think that's just a important thing to realize. And y'all are all creators, so you really get it. But it's interesting.
Yes. Looks like we actually ran over time today. Went pretty fast.
Yeah,
Ryan, thank you. Appreciate you joining the live. I definitely love to have you back another time if you're open to it.
Yeah, man, for sure. I loved hanging out with you guys. My only regret is that I did not stream it to my channel, to be quite honest.
You should have.
Yeah,
well, you should have.
That's a regret.
So the next time we'll have to do that. Then we'll get to make sure that's set up.
Yeah, we'll set it up, man. I appreciate y'all guys. Rick,
Yeah,
Steve,
absolutely.
Roger. I had a great time.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yep.
Steve, Roger,
See you all
guys
next week. Oh, see you next week. I'm being summoned, so see you next week.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's
All right, see you
past
next
my
week.
bedtime, so
Yeah.
take care all.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yes, sir. Later, guys.